Hello and welcome to this episode 9 of the Excaliburr podcast, hosted by me, Kyle Brooks. Today we are going to be discussing the frustrations that women are feeling and going through based upon the male archetype that has been represented in the 21st century. I was having a discussion with a female colleague of mine from Serbia the other day, and she expressed concerns about the fact that she is now single because of the fact that she has no way of connecting with any males in the current state that she is in, due to the understanding that most of them are wimpish, weak, have no confidence, and truly no purpose in life. I see this everywhere I go. I get to travel extensively across the United States as well as some of the South American states. South America, on the other hand, they still have a very good base of the male and female archetype. But here in the United States, there is a clear distinction that men have lost their way. They no longer understand that they need to be the protector, the guidance, and the anchor to the emotional and expressions of the female persona. Now there is this blurred line between what the male and female energies are, and it has contributed to a substantial amount of confusion and misled men in this world. We have the issue where most men are going through life with no direction, no point of view of how to express themselves correctly. And when I'm talking about expressing yourself, I'm not saying that you need to be this emotional, airy-fairy, in touch with your feelings all the time. It's okay to feel something and then still act on what is necessarily the objective for the day. Most men will get stuck in that feeling, and they will no longer make progress on what it is that they have to do. And that is why we are running into these issues where there is a clear distinction of why it is so easy to be a very successful person in today's age. If you are able to execute on very simple tasks and show up regardless of how you feel, you're going to be successful. And by developing confidence in yourself, along with those characteristics, there's no way that you are not going to be able to reach the top of your industry. So, where did this problem come from? How did it develop? And what are some of the factors that we can use to reconnect men with their purpose and overcome the challenges that we are facing right now? I think for the situation stems from after the world wars, when men were no longer necessarily required to be the protector or to go to war and to die for their country and for their families. They were put into a position where women now wanted to be equal to them. And here's the thing, by expressing the fact that you have to be equal, you're already unjustly biasing the entire equation. You can't take an apple and a pear and say that they are equal. They are different fruits and there are different characteristics and they both have different qualities. We should be accepting them and embracing those different qualities instead of trying to balance those different qualities together. So from that perspective, I think a lot of men were force-fed this narrative that they had to be in touch with their feelings, they had to lie on the train tracks and let women step over them to get to a certain degree or a certain aspect of their lives. And from that bias or that situation, you can see that it has created a circumstance where men no longer have a purpose. And it stems to the fact that most men will sit at home, watch football, drink all day, not do the things that are qualitatively moving them to a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And that is how I define success. If you're making progress on an ideal that you define as worthy to you, then you are successful. And that could be becoming 1% better than you were yesterday. It could be getting your degree, making progress on developing and starting a company. Any one of those different circumstances, as long as you're making progress on something, you're going to be classified as successful. Now, unfortunately, what we have is we have a situation where men have been put into a category where they are no longer needed in this world, where they are force-fed the fact that they should be in touch with their emotions and be wimpy and be crying for any particular reason and be allowed to cry at that particular reasons. I'm not saying that I don't have or feel emotions, but when I feel those emotions and I have something to do, I still get it done. If I'm tired, if I'm sad, if I'm feeling any particular way, I am still going to show up and make progress on the stuff that I have, because there are people that are counting on me to get things done. But on top of that, I would like to be the best person in my ancestral history, because there's no way that I'm going to allow everyone that has come before me to be let down by the fact that I had a bad day and I was going to be crying for a particular reason or for something that is not going to be mattering in the next 10 years. So based on that, what outcomes can we move to, and how can we structure things so that we can better understand what the archetype should be or could be to reinvigorate the male energy and basically get men back in touch with who and what they're supposed to be. One, it starts with developing confidence in who you are. Now, confidence is something that is not expressed from outside or external factors. It's rather something that you develop from within. If you commit to something, for example, say you commit to waking up at a particular time every day, that could be 6 o'clock in the morning. When you say you're going to wake up at that time. That's a check in the box now on the ledger on the side that says you will do what you say you're going to do. Then you do it the next day and the next day. And eventually what happens is that you build up this repertoire of good days and good tasks. And eventually you have the confidence to say that I've done this. Now, what else can I add to that? Then you add another habit to it. For example, weight training or exercising in any point of view. For that, what that develops in you is not only the confidence for showing up, but also your body image starts to change. And no, you don't have to look like a bodybuilder or one of those people that are exceptionally ripped. All you have to do is make sure that your clothes is fitting you a little bit better. And when you show up to meetings or when you show up at events, essentially what happens is that you come to a point of view and circumstance where you're not reliant on other people's validation, because your validation is coming from within you. But when you do show up, something happens something starts to happen, and other people start to see that you behave, you move, and you talk differently. They verify the fact that there's something really different about this person. He's moving through life and navigating through life with an air of confidence, with an air of charisma and charm, because those three things are all linked together. When you have that confidence in you, it allows other people to start to share and start to understand that they can do it as well. That is one of the fundamental things that we build at the Excaliburr program. We choose to help men by taking them by their hand and starting with small, manageable tasks, building up their confidence, building up their physique, and then their mindset. And as your mindset starts to shift, every other circumstance in your life will start to get better, incrementally increasing and improving, drastically shifting you from where you were to a position of essentially performance that you would never have thought of before. From there, I think the results are clear, because not only will you get better access to job interviews, your financials will start to increase, because if you're disciplined physically and mentally, then your bank balance will also be better, because you're not focusing on wasting your money on partying on the weekend or excessively buying technology, but rather on bettering yourself. And once you better yourself, you start to add more value to your company, to your community, and to your other relationships. Once that happens, the more value you add, the law of reciprocation states that the more value you will receive. So by fundamentally changing these circumstances and putting the male archetype back into the equation, allowing the female circumstance or the female archetype to be who they are, which is the emotional beings, and being able to guide and anchor them and allow them to freely express without losing yourself in that moment, you are going to be different from every other man that they have been around. And by doing that, you now have access to a different life. Because when you're on your mission, like every other Disney story or every other story, a man's always on his mission, and the woman comes along and adds to that. And that's how they meet. So if you think about it from that perspective, no woman really wants a man to go out looking for her, but rather to meet a man on his mission. And it's been in every single fairy tale that you can even think about. So by putting your purpose first, by focusing on developing you into the best version of who you are, that is where you are going to be able to help and guide other people, as well as the woman that you are going to be with, to be the best version of who she is. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode today. We are going to be launching a program coming up fairly soon. It is called The Forge. We have the application out there already. The Forge program is a step-by-step guide to take you by the hand and develop you into the best version of who you are, reconnecting you with who you are and the purpose that you have for living in this day and age. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You guys can find us on Excaliburr Coaching, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, as well as Spotify. Have a fantastic day, guys.